Welcome to Poetry Lockdown. We are up to day 72. I have mentioned a number of times, and I'll make that call out again. I love requests for poems. It makes me happy to recite a poem that I know is important to a friend or even an e-friend who I'm just meeting through social media. So please, if you have a request, shoot it my way. This goes out to my good friend David Dalt. So Christine and I lived in Chicago for a couple of years, and I had the good fortune to work with David at Catholic Theological Union. Just a terrific human being. He sent me a couple of requests, maybe like a month or two ago, of poets that he was interested in, and one of them I gravitated towards, Carl Sandburg, just because he's really associated with Chicago, and that's just how I know David is through the city of Chicago. So I found a poem that I feel like really fits David's personality. I want to note also that David is like a radio genius and has like some really cool. He's got a PhD in theology. I should mention that. He's got a couple of really cool podcasts that really deal with ways that theology and contemporary culture intersect with each other. One, Things Not Seen. He interviews a variety of different people from a variety of faith traditions. And those are individual interviews. They're really cool. The other is one called The Francis Effect, and it especially deals with contemporary Catholic issues with a Franciscan priest, Father Dan Haran. And those two are just fantastic together. So I'd really recommend either of those if you're kind of interested with some of the stuff maybe you've seen on this Poetry Lockdown, intersections between faith and the arts. These guys, Father Haran and David Dalt, deal with a whole bunch of different topics of faith issues. So that's a big long intro because David Dalt's a really cool guy. And the poem that I've chosen that I feel like speaks to some of what I know about him as a person is Carl Sandburg's To a Contemporary Bunkshooter. And I looked up that word bunk and bunk shoot, and I think a good way of sort of glossing that word would just be kind of like bullshit to someone who really is not speaking the truth about something. And you will see the something or someone this person is not speaking the truth about is Jesus. It's a pretty big deal for Carl Sandburg. Without further ado, let me jump on into this poem. To a Contemporary Bunkshooter by Carl Sandburg. You come along, tearing your shirt, yelling about Jesus. Where do you get that stuff? What do you know about Jesus? Jesus had a way of talking soft, and outside of a few bankers and higher-ups among the con men of Jerusalem, everybody liked to have this Jesus around because he never made any fake passes, and everything he said went, and he helped the sick and gave the people hope. You come along squirting words at us, shaking your fist and calling us all damn fools so fierce the froth slobbers over your lips. Always blabbing, we're all going to hell straight off, and you know all about it. I've read Jesus's words. I know what he said. You don't throw any scare into me. I've got your number. I know how much you know about Jesus. He never came near clean people or dirty people, but they felt cleaner because he came along. It was your crowd of bankers and businessmen and lawyers hired the sluggers and murderers who put Jesus out of the running. I say the same bunch backing you nailed the nails into the hands of this Jesus of Nazareth. He had lined up against him the same crooks and strong-arm men now lined up with you paying your way. This Jesus was good to look at, smelled good, listened good. He threw out something fresh and beautiful from the skin of his body and the touch of his hands wherever he passed along. You slimy bunk shooter, you put a smut on every human blossom in reach of your rotten breath, belching about hellfire and hiccuping about this man who lived a clean life in Galilee. When are you going to quit making the carpenters build emergency hospitals for women and girls driven crazy with wrecked nerves from your gibberish about Jesus? I put it to you again. Where do you get that stuff? What do you know about Jesus? Go ahead and bust all the chairs you want to. Smash a whole wagon load of furniture at every performance. Turn 60 somersaults and stand on your nutty head. If it wasn't for the way you scare the women and kids, I'd feel sorry for you and pass the hat. I like to watch a good four-flusher work, but not when he starts people puking and calling for the doctors. I like a man that's got nerve and can pull off a great original performance. But you're only a bughouse peddler of secondhand gospel. You're only shoving out a phony imitation of the goods this Jesus wanted, free as air and sunlight. You tell people living in shanties Jesus is going to fix it up all right with them by giving them mansions in the skies after they're dead and the worms have eaten them. You tell $6 a week department store girls all they need is Jesus. You take a steel trussed wop, dead without having lived, gray and shrunken at 40 years of age, and you tell him to look at Jesus on the cross and he'll be all right. You tell poor people they don't need any more money on payday, and even if it's fierce to be out of a job, Jesus will fix that up all right. All they got to do is take Jesus the way you say. Page turn. I'm telling you, Jesus wouldn't stand for the stuff you're handing out. Jesus played it different. The bankers and lawyers of Jerusalem got their sluggers and murderers to go after Jesus just because Jesus wouldn't play their game. He didn't sit in with the big thieves. I don't want a lot of gab from a bunk shooter, bullshitter in my religion. I won't take my religion from any man who never works except with his mouth and never cherishes any memory except the face of the woman on the American silver dollar. I ask you to come through and show me where you're pouring out the blood of your life. I've been to this suburb of Jerusalem they call Golgotha, where they nailed him, and I know if the story is straight, it was real blood ran from his hand and the nail holes, and it was real blood spurted in red drops, where the spear of the Roman soldier rammed in between the ribs of this Jesus of Nazareth. What a poem. David Dull, if you're listening out there, I hope you can appreciate why I thought of you and when I read this poem. David Dull, to me, really lives the gospel, is always someone who's generous with his heart and with his life, and does not suffer fools lightly or gladly when they use the name of Jesus to justify things that are in no way Christian or following Jesus. So this poem made me think of you, David. I think there are many reasons why I like this poem. I love it for its plain spokenness. And I think that Sandburg is on to the heart of the gospel in a way that sometimes many, quote, official, I'm trying to make quote marks, but my arm is like, quote, anyways, quote, official religious people don't always understand. The line that sticks out to me, which I will read, and then I'll read the end of the poem one more time, is this one. I ask you to come through and show me where you're pouring out the blood of your life. All right, if you're witnessing, if you're a Jesus follower in any way, shape, or form, how are you pouring out the blood of your life? What does that witness look like in simple daily actions? All right, the last stanza. Carl Sandburg. I've been to this suburb of Jerusalem they call Golgotha, where they nailed him, and I know if the story is straight, it was real blood ran from his hand and the nail holes, and it was real blood spurted in red drops, with the spear of the Roman soldier rammed in between the ribs of this Jesus of Nazareth. Thank you, Carl Sandburg, for this beautiful poem. Thanks, David Dalt, for your beautiful witness and for requesting a Sandburg piece. Thank you all for listening.